Akane was supposed to be filled with excitement and surprises on her 18th birthday, but all she received was a strange stone. Her mom told her to visit her Aunt Kai's shop. There, she might find the answer behind the mysterious stone. Filled with questions, Akane made her way to her aunt's store. On the stone was a mysterious handprint. It felt as if some invisible force was pulling her toward it. Curious, Akane placed her hand on it. In an instant, something strange happened. Her hand fit perfectly into the handprint. It was as if they had become one. Terrified, Akane used all her strength to pull away, but she simply couldn't remove her hand. Panic-stricken, she called out for Kai. Kai rushed over, but before they could figure out what to do, the floor suddenly cracked open. A man dressed in old-fashioned clothing from the last century emerged from the ground. The man introduced himself as Hippocrates, an alchemist from a completely different world. Kai, full of suspicion, immediately grabbed a broom and tried to whack him, but Hippocrates wasn't angry in the slightest. He calmly fixed his hair, then walked straight over to Akane. With just a glance at her hand, a motionless doll on the table suddenly sprang to life. It turned out, this doll was also from the other world. He introduced himself as Peepo, Hippocrates' apprentice. He had been pretending to be a doll, guarding the stone all this time. His mission was to wait for the girl whose hand could merge with the handprint, and bring her back to their world. Whoever could merge with the print would be honored as the goddess. Legend says that when their world faces a crisis of destruction, the goddess will appear. She will save the world from disaster. Hippocrates gently reassured Akane, telling her to relax. Then he put a magical courage necklace around her neck. This necklace had taken him 3 days and 3 nights to forge. Using a secret ancestral formula, once worn, it would give the wearer the courage to do things they were once too afraid to do. With the power of the courage necklace, although Akane was still filled with fear and resistance deep inside, she couldn't help but follow Hippocrates into the temporal passage beneath the floor. Kai, unable to let her go alone, quickly packed her things and followed close behind. They traveled down a path woven of spiderwebs, passed through a wormhole, and soon stepped into the world where Hippocrates came from. This world resembled Akane's world from the last century, but it was filled with the sin of magic, and all sorts of strange and wondrous creatures she had never seen before. The moment they landed, they saw a bandit robbing an elderly couple's tricycle. After the bandit succeeded, he turned his gaze toward Akane and the others. Akane instinctively wanted to run, but with the courage necklace on, her legs refused to move. With no other choice, Hippocrates and Kai had to drag her away from danger. Luckily, the bandit didn't chase after them. Instead, he went off to dismantle an iron ladder attached to the city wall. Hippocrates quickly summoned a nearby flock of sheep and used them to finally drive the bandit away. Akane and Kai knew nothing about this world, so the villagers warmly explained the situation to them. This had once been an incredibly beautiful world, but in recent years, the water sources had been drying up. Both humans and animals were facing a survival crisis. That bandit's name was Zangu. He had suddenly appeared 6 months ago. He roamed around stealing iron items, then melted them down to make steel. No one knew what he was really after. He and his little assistant were total scumbags. They never paid for anything they took. Zangu's assistant, Doropo, was an apprentice magician. With his help, Zangu's robberies were always a success. Now, the only one who could stand against them was a powerful magician named Merlin, but he had fallen into a deep sleep a year ago and still hadn't woken up. Hippocrates solemnly told Akane that the reason he brought her to this world was to have her assist the prince. In this world, the royal family possesses a special power to summon rain, and the role of the goddess is to help the timid prince find his courage, perform the rain ritual, and save the world. The previous goddess appeared 600 years ago. With her help, the kingdom enjoyed centuries of prosperity, but now, the drought had returned, and bandits were wreaking havoc everywhere. If they wanted to restore peace and prosperity, they had no choice but to rely on Akane's help. Akane found it hard to believe that she could carry the weight of saving an entire world. She could only talk things over with Kai, who had come through the portal with her. However, just then, the shop owner's mother suddenly fell seriously ill. Her biggest wish was to send the sweater she had knitted by hand to the city for a competition. Now that she was so sick, it was clear she couldn't go herself. And so, the task fell onto Akane and her companions. The next day, Akane, carrying the old woman's sweater, set off on a journey with Hippocrates. Along the way, the grassland stretched as far as the eye could see. The scenery was picture perfect, but after just an hour, the scenery before them suddenly changed. Moments ago it had been a blazing summer, and now, fallen leaves blanketed the ground like it was autumn. Once they passed that stretch of road, the air grew colder, and the chill of winter hit them head-on. They quickly jumped out of the car and bundled up in thick pink winter coats. Akane and Kai were full of curiosity, wondering what other strange sights awaited them ahead. However, Hippocrates' expression suddenly turned grim. He told them to hold on tight, because they were heading into a sandstorm of red dust. Hippocrates slammed the gas pedal, trying to outrun the violent storm, but the wind was far too strong. In the end, they had no choice but to abandon the car and take cover. The three of them lay flat on the ground, and only after a long while did the sandstorm finally begin to settle. After enduring so much, they finally reached the city and checked into a local inn. That evening, Hippocrates went out to find fuel for the car, but shortly after he left, Zangu arrived at the inn. He aggressively forced the innkeeper to hand over food and water. Everyone was terrified of his reputation. No one dared to resist. As he left, Zangu gave Akane a long, hard look, one that carried a strange, unreadable meaning. While Hippocrates was refueling the car, he happened to run into Zangu again. Suspicious, he decided to quietly follow him. To his shock, he discovered Zangu was secretly trading ammunition with someone. It turned out, Zangu had been stealing metal to make bombs, and his target was the well the prince used for the rain summoning ritual. Seeing this, Hippocrates was furious and tried to rush in to stop him, but before he could act, Doropo cast a spell and turned him into a fly. Left with no other choice, Hippocrates, now a fly, flew off in search of Akane, but they didn't recognize him at all. Kai even nearly swatted him with her shoe. Luckily, he quickly flew into Kai's hair and dodged the attack. Akane and the others, following the map, continued their journey to deliver the sweater. They crossed a rickety wooden bridge, past a giant pond filled with lily pads, and suddenly, the road ahead came to an abrupt end. The car skidded to a stop, and they tumbled onto a massive lotus leaf. With Pipo's guidance, they applied a special gel that allowed them to breathe underwater, and jumped into the pond. Kai bravely leapt in first. Seeing this, Akane summoned her courage and followed. Once underwater, they discovered a whole new world. The underwater realm completely captivated Akane. After that, they rode on a giant fish, heading toward the competition venue. Meanwhile, Hippocrates, still a fly, could only struggle forward along the surface of the lotus leaves. After passing through a beautiful rainbow-colored mountain, they finally reached their destination. The guards here were a group of cats. Before entering, they had to pass a feline inspection. Kai, eager to get through quickly, tried to bribe them with cat food. Nice. But back in the human world, Akane had once accidentally tugged a cat's tail while playing with it. This enraged the Cat King. Not only did he forbid Akane from entering the competition, he also turned her into a cat. Then, the group of cats began yanking on Akane's tail. After being thoroughly punished by the cats, Akane finally passed the inspection. Kai wanted to explore on her own. Akane had no choice but to go to the competition alone. Fortunately, the inspection here wasn't so strict. The staff quickly stamped the entry form for the sweater, and Akane successfully fulfilled the old woman's wish. However, Akane's mission in this world was far from over. She still needed to help the prince perform the rain ritual, but when she arrived at the palace, she found that the prince was missing. All that remained on the bed was an empty iron doll. At this time, drought had plagued this world for 5 years. The people were suffering immensely. The ministers went to ask the prince to summon rain, only to find that he had already left the palace. With no other option, they headed to the mountain slope to awaken the sleeping Merlin. Only he knew where the prince had gone. After being called again and again by everyone, Merlin finally awoke. He entered the prince's bedchamber and used a magic orb to track the prince's whereabouts. To everyone's shock, the prince turned out to be the very bandit everyone despised, Zangu, and the person with him was none other than Akane. It turned out, Zangu had known from a young age that he was destined to summon rain, but he was always afraid he would fail. So with Doropo's help, he turned himself into what he was now. He had wanted to run away from everything, but when he saw how the people struggled to survive in the drought, He couldn't bear to stand by, so he went around collecting metal to make explosives. He naively believed that blowing up the well might somehow fix the drought. This time, Akane was no longer timid. She wanted to stop Zangu. At that moment, people also recognized Doropo as one of his kind in disguise, but Doropo refused to admit it. He became more and more agitated, and his magic faltered. Both he and Hippocrates returned to their original forms. The prince, ignoring everyone's protests, drove the iron vehicle toward the sacred well, ready to fire the cannon. At the critical moment, Akane grabbed hold of the prince's leg and tried to stop him. The prince poured out his heart to Akane. He said both his grandfather and father had successfully summoned rain. He was terrified that he wouldn't be able to do it himself. That's why he resorted to such drastic measures. Akane listened and felt exactly the same way. Everyone called her a goddess, placing all their hopes on her shoulders. That made Akane feel deeply insecure. She was afraid of letting everyone down, but this journey through the other world had filled her with courage. She encouraged Zangu to believe in himself. She promised to give him all the help she could. Akane's words were like a warm ray of sunlight, melting the ice in Zangu's heart. The dark magic instantly vanished. Zangu shed his disguise and returned to his original, handsome self. To help ensure the rain ritual would succeed the next day, Akane asked Hippocrates to make a courage necklace for the prince. On the day of the ritual, Akane placed the necklace around Zangu's neck. It instantly fused with him. With Akane's encouragement, Zangu confidently walked up the sacred platform. At sunrise, he raised his sword high and began the rain summoning ritual. Water droplets flowed from the sword into the well. Zangu silently prayed in his heart. Everyone waited with hopeful eyes for the outcome. However, minutes passed, and aside from a single falling leaf, there was no sign of rain in the sky. But what Akane didn't know was, if the rain ritual failed, Zangu would have to sacrifice his own life to bring forth the rain. It was the fate of the royal family. That was the very reason he had tried to escape. As Zangu prepared to jump into the well and give up his life, Akane suddenly realized she might have made a terrible mistake. If she had known sooner what this would cost him, she would never have tried to persuade him. She clung tightly to the prince, desperately trying to stop him. In the struggle, the two of them fell into the well together. Zangu thought for sure he was going to die, but at the bottom of the well, he unexpectedly met Merlin. It turned out, Merlin had been waiting for the prince to grow into a responsible and worthy king. Now, Zangu had finally found the courage and determination to sacrifice himself for the world. Merlin could now entrust the kingdom to him with peace of mind. Zangu and Akane were returned to the surface. This time, Zangu stood before the well with unwavering resolve to summon the rain once more. He raised the sword high above his head and struck the well water with all his might. The water transformed into countless droplets, which rose into the sky and finally turned into a torrential downpour. Zangu had succeeded. He brought life back to this land that had been dry for so long, and Akane had played a vital role in it all. With their mission complete, Akane and Kai had to return to the real world. Hippocrates led them to the portal. Akane tried to return the courage necklace, but Hippocrates smiled and said, the necklace's magic had long since faded. What had carried her through it all was her own inner strength and will. After saying goodbye to Hippocrates, Akane and Kai returned to the real world. To their amazement, even after everything they had been through, only an hour had passed in the real world. Akane returned home and immediately hugged her mother tightly, then drifted off to sleep in peace. Her mother looked at the ceremonial banner Akane had brought back from the other world and already guessed what kind of adventure her daughter had experienced. In truth, her mother had been the very first goddess 600 years ago. The path she once walked, Akane had now walked it too, letting Akane see a different world and experience a different kind of life. Was the best 18th birthday gift her mother could give?